Hello, sixth graders. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of our lesson. We're learning how to compare and order rational numbers today. You will need a pencil, paper, and make sure that you're following along on your iPad to this video. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to compare and order rational numbers. So our previous lesson just talked about comparing fractions with other fractions and comparing decimals with other decimals. Today we're going to talk about how to compare decimals and fractions together. So go ahead and move to the next slide. Right now we're going to talk about how to change a fraction into a decimal. And all you do is you're just going to divide right here. Change a fraction into a decimal, just divide. Here I have the fraction 1/2, and when I change it into a division problem, I put the top number inside the house and the bottom number goes on the outside. If you remember our poem, our little story, it said the top number is too heavy, so it gets pushed over and it goes inside the house, and the bottom number comes knocking on the door. Well, we're going to add to that poem and say the top number, it just gets pushed over and goes inside the house, whether it's too heavy or not. The top number always gets pushed over and goes inside the house, even if it's smaller. So here I have a smaller number. If you notice, I have 1 that's going inside the house and 2 on the outside. And you might be thinking, Ms. Adefuye, we can't do that, but yes, we can. We can put the smaller number inside the house because all I have to do to make it a bigger number is add a decimal. So if I add a decimal and a 0, I now have the number 10 on the inside. So I'm just going to divide. I'm going to say, can 2 go into 1? Nope, it can't go into 1. So I'm going to put a 0 there. But can 2 go into 10? Yes, it can. It can go in 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. My decimal, it goes straight up. And my answer is 0.5 or 5/10. So 1/2 as a decimal is 0.5. I want you to go ahead, from what you know already, try to change 2/5 into a decimal. Pause the video to give yourself a moment. Okay, so hopefully you saw that the 2 goes inside the house and the 5 goes on the outside. Can 5 go into 2? No, it cannot, so we put a 0 on the top. And we are going to add a decimal and a 0. So now it's, can 5 go into 20? Can 5 go into 20? Yes, it can. 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 minus 20 is 0. And my decimal, if you remember, it goes straight up. And 2/5 as a decimal equals 0.4. That is my answer. So now let's talk about when we're dividing a fraction. And sometimes when we're dividing a fraction, I wrote it right here, the decimal keeps on repeating. To show that we have a repeating decimal, we put a bar on top of the numbers that are repeating. So if that was a little bit confusing to you, let me explain it further. Here I have 1/3. And so the 1 goes inside the house, of course, and the 3 goes on the outside. 1 is on top, and the top number always goes inside the house. So let's divide. Can 3 go into 1? No, it can't. Put a 0 there. Add another 0 and a decimal point. Can 3 go into 10? Yes, it can. 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. And then I add another 0 and I bring it down. So now, can 3 go into 10? Yes, it can. 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. I'm noticing a pattern. I'm just going to add another 0, bring it down. Can 3 go into 10? Yes, it can. 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. Are you guys seeing the pattern? Every time I subtract, I always get a 1. I got a 1 here, I got a 1 here, and I got a 1 here. So I noticed that my answer is just going to be 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and go on and on and on. So instead of writing that forever, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write 0.3 and put this little bar on top of the 3 to show that the 3 is going to keep on going on and on and on. I want you to go ahead and try out 1/9. I want you to change 1/9 into a decimal, okay? So what number goes on the inside? What number goes on the outside? All right, pause the video and you try dividing. Okay, so hopefully you've all had a moment to try it out. So we said the 1 goes on the inside, the 9 goes on the outside. Hopefully no one got that wrong. Can 9 go into 1? No, it cannot. So we put a 0 there and we add a decimal. It's easy for me to just put my decimal on top right now and just move it straight up so that on my answer I don't get confused. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so my decimal went straight up, so I have 0 point something and I don't know what it is. So can 9 go into 10? Yes. How many times? 1 times. 1 times 9 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. I'm going to add another 0 and bring it down. Can 9 go into 10? Yes, it can. 1 time. 1 times 9 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. I'm going to add another 0, bring it down. Can 9 go into 10? 1 time. 1 times 9 is, okay. Are you guys seeing a pattern here? Because I'm seeing a pattern. Every time I subtract, I always get the answer 1. So it looks like my answer is going to just be 0.1111111 over and over until infinity. So how should I write my answer? Okay. Is that correct? Is my answer 0.1? No, it is not. My answer is not 0.1. My answer is 0.1 repeating. Make sure you have that repeating bar. Otherwise, your answer will be called incorrect. Gotta have that repeating bar. So 1/9 as a decimal is 0.1 repeating. Okay, now that we know how to change fractions into decimals, now let's talk about how we change decimals into fractions. This one's very, very simple. Pay attention, close attention. All we do is look at the place values. That's it. So here I have 0.4. 4 is in the tens place. So 10 goes on the bottom and all the numbers behind the decimal go on top. So 0.4 becomes 4/10. Here I have 0.37. The number that's furthest to the right is in the hundredths place. So 100 goes on the bottom and whatever's behind the decimal goes on top, which is 37. So 0.37 equals 37 hundredths. Here I have 0.279. My number that is furthest to the right is in the thousandths place. So 1,000 goes on the bottom. So 0.279. I have 279 on the back. So 279 goes on the top. Oh, I have 279 behind the decimal. Sorry, misspoke. And 279 goes on top. So that becomes 279 thousandths. I want you to try to change these into fractions. I have 0.04, 0.9, and 0.795. Go ahead and try to change these numbers into fractions. Pause the video while you're doing it. All right, let's talk about it. So the 4 is in the hundredths place. So what goes on the bottom? Kind of just wrote it already, 100. And whatever is to the right of the decimal goes on top. So here I have a 0 and a 4. I could write 04, but we all know that a 0 in front of a number doesn't really mean anything. So I can just write 4. So 4 hundredths. For 0.9, 9 is in the tens place. So on the bottom is a 10, and on the top is a 9. Last one, I have 0.795. My number that is furthest to the right is in the thousandths place. So what's going to go on the bottom? 1,000. And the numbers that are to the right of the decimal are 795. So 795 goes on top. So this is how we change decimals into fractions. Okay, now let's bring everything all together. Here I have some instructions that say order the following rational numbers from least to greatest. So here I have decimals and I have fractions, and I have to order these numbers from least to greatest. So let's start. Here we're going to do this first one together, and then you're going to try this one on your own. I have 2.3, 2 4/5, and 2.6. So since I want to order these rational numbers from least to greatest, and I have two numbers that are already decimals, I'm going to decide that I'm going to change this fraction into the decimal. You could also decide that you want to change these two decimals into fractions. It's going to give you the same answer, but just to make this quicker, since I already have two decimals, let me just change my third number into a decimal. So I have the number 2 4/5. If I want to change 2 and 4/5 into a decimal, how do I do that? How do I change from a fraction to a decimal? Okay, I hope someone said it. Or I've looked back in the slides to find it. We just divide, okay? So I have 2 and 4/5, and I'm going to divide. When I divide, I'm only going to divide my fraction part. I'm only going to divide my fraction part. That 2, I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not going to say 24 divided by 5. No, no, no. I'm going to just put 4 divided by 5. Oh, and I just said it. Which number goes inside the house? The top number, which here is 4. Okay. Can 5 go into 4? Nope, it cannot. So I'm going to add a decimal point and a 0. And as I said earlier, go ahead and bring your decimal straight up so you don't make any mistakes later. Bring that decimal straight up. All right. Can 5 go into 40? Yes, it can. And I get 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. 40 minus 40 is 0. We're done. But I have a question. Is 2 and 4/5 equal to 0.8? Does 2 and 4/5 equal 0.8? Okay, I hope a lot of people said no, because it doesn't. It does not equal 0.8. Remember, whenever we changed our fraction into a decimal, we only worked with the 4/5 part. So 4/5 equals 0.8. When I get back to my decimal answer, my final answer, I have to remember to add my 2. So I'm not going to have a 0 here. No 0 here. I'm actually going to have a 2 because I need to add my 2 back in. So 2 and 4/5 equals 2.8. Okay? So if I wanted to order them from least to greatest, my smallest number, well, let me just write the numbers out. I have 2.3, 2.8, and 2.6. So if I wanted to order them from the smallest number to the greatest number, my smallest answer is 2.3, followed by 2.6, and last 2.8. I'm adding something today. Whenever you write your final answer, I want you to use the same numbers as they gave you. Whenever you write your final answer, I want you to use the same numbers as they gave you. So if you write 2.3, 2.6, and 2.8 as your final answer, that would be considered wrong because the numbers that they gave us were my pen's not working. Numbers that they gave us were 2.3, 2.6, and 2 and 4/5. Okay? So this would be my answer. That would be the final answer. So you might have to write your answer 2 different ways, with the numbers that you got when you divided and then the numbers that they gave you. So I want you to go ahead. Here I have the numbers 0.85, 3/5, 0.15, and 7/10. We need to order them as well from least to greatest. I have 2 decimals and 2 fractions. So you can decide whether you want to change these 2 fractions into decimals or change these 2 decimals into fractions and compare them. Remember, when you're comparing fractions, if you do change them all into fractions, all of your fractions need to have the same denominators for you to compare them. So you go ahead, try it out. Figure out which method works best for you. Pause the video while you're doing it and play it to see if you got your answer correct. All right. So hopefully everyone had a chance to work out the problems. Let's go and let's solve. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, since I changed fractions and decimals last time, I'm going to change the decimals into fractions and I'm going to go from there. So I have 0.85 and I'm going to change that one first into a fraction. So I'm going to look at the number that's furthest to the right. The number that's furthest to the right is a 5, and it is in the hundredths place. So on the bottom of my fraction is going to be 100. And on the top is going to be everything that's behind the decimal. So I have 85. Okay, so I have 85 over 100. We've got 3/5. I look at 0.15. My number that's furthest to the right is in the hundredths place. So on the bottom is going to be 100. And on top is going to be 15 because that's everything that's behind the decimal. So I have 15 over 100. And my last one is 7/10. Here I have a slight issue because I have three different denominators. I have 100, 5, 100, and 10. So I'm going to list out the common factors for 5, 10, and 100. And some of you may already know what the common factor would be, but I'm going to write it out just in case anyone doesn't know. So I'm going to start with 5, and I'm going to ... because I'm not going to write out all those numbers because I know you need time to go do your assignments. So I'm going to start with 80, 85, 90, 95, 100. That's a little bit of a hint as to what my common factor is going to be. 7, 80, not common factor, common multiple, 100. And then for 100, I have 100, put a decimal there on accident. 200, and so on. So what number they all have in common, you probably saw it already, is 100. So I'm going to make all of my denominators 100. So 85 over 100 is fine. Let me change 3/5. And I want my new denominator to be 100. How do I get from 5 to 100? Times 20. Right. 5 times 20 is 100. And what we did at the bottom, we have to do to the top. So 3 times 20 is 60. So 3/5 is 60 over 100. My 15 over 100 is just fine. Now I have 7/10. Let me change that one to have the correct denominator. My new denominator was what again? 100. How do I get from 10 to 100? Times 10. What I did at the bottom, I must do to the top. So 7 times 10 is 70. All right. So my new numbers, I'm going to write them all out again just so I don't get them any confused. I have 85 over 100. I have 60 over 100. I have 15 over 100. And then I have 70 over 100. If I want to write these in order from least to greatest, as it's set up here, my first one is going to be 15 over 100, followed by 60 over 100, followed by 70 over 100, and last, 85 over 100. Is this my final answer? No, it is not, because I did not use the original numbers. I'm going to use the original numbers when I write my final answer. So my final answer is this. So 15 over 100, originally they gave us 0.15. 60 over 100, originally they gave us 3/5. 70 over 100, originally they gave us 7/10. And 85 over 100, originally they gave us 0.85. This is my final answer. On your assignment, this is what we're going to be doing over and over again. We're going to be comparing and ordering fractions and decimals together. Make sure that you have a separate sheet of paper that you're working on and that you show your work for each and every problem. Have fun doing it.